What's going on, guys? I'm Tim Kelly. This is Phillies Stoplight. The Phillies went to Pittsburgh this weekend and got swept by a team that's one of the five worst teams in baseball. And, it's one thing Sunday to lose a game to Paul Skeens, and we're going to get to Paul Skeens in a second. But they scored five combined runs between Friday and Saturday. And I think the natural discussion here is this just a rough stretch that you inevitably go through at a tough time? Because prior to this stretch, the Phillies were playing like one of the better teams in baseball, or is this time to panic? And I do think it's the perfect storm lineup wise right now. Bryce Harper, since the last time we talked, went on the injured list with a wrist injury. He's out. Kyle Schwarber, I know it's June, but he's been mortal. He homered Saturday, but outside of that, he's been pretty mortal so far this month, and even relative to what he had done for much of this season, where he had been one of the best producers in baseball. Those things to me will correct themselves. I don't think the Phillies are going to end up in a situation where they tank and they're sellers at the deadline. Like I've seen some people, it kind of feels dramatic to suggest something like that at this point in the season. But I look at them right now and I do feel like they're in a worse position than they were in either of the last 2 years at this time. They need multiple relief arms, and maybe some of that comes internally, but inevitably some of it's going to have to come externally. And even to get a guy like Dennis Santana, who the Phillies saw over the weekend in Pittsburgh, nice pitcher, it's kind of someone with like a Jeff Hoffman profile in the sense that it took him multiple stops, but he's really figured it out. He has a year of control, so he'd be a really nice addition. But it's not as though you're getting Ryan Helsley or one of these elite back end guys that's a proven closer. And I still think it would cost a lot if you consider it cost two top 10 prospects to get Carlos Estevez last year for a few months. What would it cost to get a guy like that? You're talking about having to pay a premium really for any reliever at this stage that's going to make an impact. So you have to do that. Jose Alvarado's absence unquestionably put them in a bind. And then they need, in my mind, a middle of the order bat, which is not something the Phillies went to the trade deadline in either of the last two seasons looking for. Last year, Austin Hayes may, even before things didn't go well, may have been an underwhelming addition, but I think most people thought adding someone that can play in left field, platoon with Brandon Marsh, that made sense. This year, I don't think you can just make that type of addition and feel like you've had a successful trade deadline, because even when you make an addition, I mean, you're going to have Bryce Harper come back. Kyle Schwarber's good. Trey Turner's had a great season. But right now in your lineup, outside of those three, who do you feel confident about? Alec Bohm has not had a great season. He's been better since the slower start, but not been a great season for him. Nick Castellanos has not had a great season, hasn't been bad, but hasn't had a great season. Bryson Stott has been in the tank the last few weeks, and as much as I think there's value in seeing pitches, he's a good base runner, excellent fielder. He cannot continue to hit leadoff, and I expect he will not. Max Kepler is having one of the more forgettable seasons from like a Phillies regular than I can remember. Outside of the home run against Mason Miller in Sacramento, there just haven't been a ton of good moments. He's been an excellent fielder in left field, but offensively has not provided the impact it appeared he may in spring training. Brandon Marsh has had a disappointing season. JT Realmuto is finally looking his age to a degree. Even if he's still an above average catcher, he's no longer the offensive force he was at that position a few years ago. So I don't think, like, a lot of these guys you felt a few years ago, like you could outslug a lot of your problems. I don't think the Phillies can do that right now, short of having games where Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber are hitting multiple home runs. The question to me is not whether you're going to be a playoff team, because I think they're going to be a playoff team, but it's whether you believe that this is a team capable of making a deep run. And as I look at it right now, they have a lot of holes to fix to be able to do that. The starting rotation, even though Aaron Nola is out and Jesus Luzardo has struggled the last few outings, you still feel really good about the starting rotation. The bullpen, you do not feel good about. And the lineup right now, it's difficult to feel good about that, particularly with Bryce Harper out, but even before he went out, to feel like you have much outside of those top three. So I think the debate needs to be framed that way. It's not, are the Phillies going to collapse, but it's just, how much of a major investment do you make on this team when you feel like you're multiple pieces away from having a World Series caliber lineup? I get that in some senses the window is closing for this team, but do you trade away Justin Crawford or Mick Abel, or one of these guys that is either helping you now or can help you in the not so distant future? for this team? Do you feel like this team is one or two pieces away, or do you get to the deadline and feel like this is a team that can play in the playoffs but isn't capable of making a deep run? It's going to be an interesting decision for Dave Dombrowski to have to ultimately make. Now, Paul Skeens, he got the ball against the Phillies Sunday, and I know some fans only like to hear about their team. But if you're a fan of baseball, it's hard not to kind of marvel at what Paul Skeens has done since coming into the league last year. Rookie of the year last year, started in the All-Star game as a rookie. I would be shocked unless the days don't line up correctly if he doesn't start in the All-Star game again this year. Yesterday, 7 2/3 innings. He's got a 1.88 ERA. He's only 4-6, didn't get a decision yesterday. It is indicative of how badly the Pirates are blowing this right now. And maybe they have time to regroup, but it does feel like they're inevitably going to waste the years that they have with him, and he'll end up on the Dodgers or the Yankees or whoever in a few seasons. And it'll kind of always be one of those things like what could have been if Bob Nutting and the Pirates had really made major investments to take advantage of this window they have with him. But to me, he has as good of a repertoire as anybody I've seen come into the league. Jacob deGrom 4 or 5 years ago was about as nasty as any pitcher I think you can say Arsenal wise that baseball's ever seen, because he was doing a lot of what Pedro Martinez was doing and also throwing 100 as opposed to Martinez throwing like 97. Paul Skeens has entered the league doing a lot of this stuff that it took some other guys years to get to. And that to me is what makes him so dominant and why he is such a joy to watch pitch. Obviously, if you're the Phillies or any other team, it's a lot more fun to watch him pitch against another team. But just as like an observer of baseball, I couldn't go through two Paul Skeens starts in a few weeks, because the last Paul Skeens start was the Jose Alvarado suspension and Mick Abel debut day. Didn't get to talk a ton about him. I am blown away by what he has done to begin his career. And I hope he stays healthy, because it's great for the game, whether he ends up in Pittsburgh long term or not, we'll see. But I think if he's healthy, he has a chance to go down as one of the greatest pitchers that we've ever seen. The Phillies don't get rest till Thursday, although this might be a great time for an off day. They don't get one today. The Cubs are coming into town. Zach Wheeler will return after missing a week on the paternity list. He'll start tonight. Mick Abel will start Tuesday. And then Jesus Luzardo, who the Phillies really need to rebound after two disastrous starts, he'll go Wednesday on a matinee to finish the series. Cubs-wise, Pete Crow Armstrong is playing about as well as anybody in the league. He's got 17 home runs. He's a Platinum Glove Award level defender in center field. So you have him. Kyle Tucker, obviously one of the best all-around players in baseball. So the Phillies have their work cut out lineup-wise against the Cubs. Seiya Suzuki, who I thought would have been a great trade target in the offseason, but the Cubs wisely, I think, didn't want to trade him. They ended up trading Cody Bellinger, and it looks clearly like the right decision. He's been hot of late. So it's a tough lineup to deal with. In theory, Wheeler, Abel, and Luzardo should be a good trio of starting pitchers to go with. The Phillies are going to face Matthew Boyd, Colin Ray, and Ben Brown in this series. Boyd and Ray are solid pitchers. None of those guys blow you away. But there's a lot of these episodes where I come on and I really get in depth in breaking down who the Phillies are going to face. The reality is the Phillies just got swept by the Pirates over the weekend, and you can write Sunday's game off because they faced Paul Skeens. But of late, it really hasn't mattered who they've faced. They desperately need this offense to get going. And maybe that's Kyle Schwarber goes back to leadoff. Maybe Trey Turner goes to leadoff against righties and lefties, and Schwarber moves up. I don't think you can justify anymore, especially with Harper out, having Schwarber hit cleanup. Having so few impact hitters right now, Schwarber needs to be getting as many at-bats as possible and making an impact in the first inning every single night. So I anticipate Rob Thompson, and he kind of hinted at this post-game Sunday, will do his best to shake up the lineup. I just don't know that he has the guys right now. With Harper out and some of the other guys, Stott, Marsh, Bohm, have not developed like you maybe hoped they would. I don't know that there's the guys right now to really make an impact by rearranging how some of these guys hit in the order. So it's going to be interesting. I don't think the Phillies are going to not ever win a series again the rest of the season. I still think they're going to win enough to be a playoff team. Whether they're in the division race, I can't say. I think right now the Mets are clearly the favorites there, but Braves haven't played well this season either, and the Mets are not running away with the division. So the Phillies can certainly regroup, but it is fair, particularly in my mind with the lineup, because it's clear as day they need to add relief pitching. I think they're going to add relief pitching, and some of that comes internally. Taijuan Walker looked good Sunday. Down the road, we'll see what happens with someone like Ranger Suarez, or if Andrew Painter gets at an innings limit late in the season, maybe you shift him there. So you have some options internally. Still think you'll make an external addition. I just don't know offensively if the guys right now outside of Schwarber and Turner, because you have Harper out, are good enough. So lots of questions with the Phillies, and they're going to need to answer them beginning this week with the Cubs. That'll do it for today's episode of Phillies Stoplight. I'm Tim Kelly. Check out everything on Pattison, and I will talk to you guys next time.